Welcome to A Shot in the Arm podcast. I'm Ben Plumley, and I'm joined by three incredibly powerful women who are, well, we all are members of the MTV Staying Alive Foundation family, but that's not what we're talking about today. So let me first of all introduce, as always, my co-host and sister, Yvette Raphael. Hey, Yvette.
Hey, Ben. How's it?
It goes well, thank you. I'm also joined by my partner in crime and also friend of the pod, my co-chair at MTV Staying Alive, Steph Undlovo. Steph, how are you?
I'm great, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Awesome.
And last and by definitely not least is a really dear, old friend of mine. And I was realizing we've known each other since 2002.
Yes.
You realize that?
Yep.
It is Wame Jallow, who is the new executive director of MTV Staying Alive. Yay! Hey, Wame.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Hello,
I'm good.
friend.
So look, this podcast is about the role of women in Africa, particularly South Africa, Southern Africa, in leading digital and social media to change lives, particularly in the health sphere, but not only. And you are all extraordinary experts in your own right. And the purpose of this podcast is really to tell other girls and young women, some of whom indeed are subscribers to A Shot in the Arm, believe it or not, what they can do, how they can be inspired. So, Wame, first up, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and how on earth you ended up at MTV Staying Alive?
All right. Well, thanks. That's a really very good question, and it's a very long-winded question, so I'll try and summarize it as much as I can. But my passion is making sure that we can understand the lives of people all around the world and bring their voices to the table, especially the ones who are marginalized, who are unheard, who we don't hear from, the people who matter the most. So I got into this work loving communities and always wanting to make sure that communities are at the center of everything that we do. Design of programs, being implementer of services, et cetera, et cetera. So the road was long. I started with research, doing community-led monitoring, allowing communities to collect information and saying, hey, this is what matters to me. This is why it matters, and this is why I need to sit at the table and share what I know. So that's how I got started, and then it became, well, wait a minute, these are stories of people's lives. And why do they matter? Because we don't hear about them. We hear about data, we see graphs, we see all these policies, but we don't see the people who matter the most actually sitting down and saying, hey, wait a minute, that's my story. This is why this matters. So long story short, I'm here. I got to MTV Staying Alive because I was able then to advocate for young people to tell their stories. And I hope to continue to do that and to make sure that we're bringing young, unheard voices to the table.
Amen to that.
Sure.
Steph.
Don't ask me after that answer.
As the host, the co-host of the YouTube channel series, the Undlovos Uncut, you have an audience, a subscriber list of what, 337,000?
Yes.
And that's all in South Africa, or is it broader than that?
It's largely in South Africa, probably a good 90% South Africa or 85%, and then the rest is spread out.
And you're an actor, your husband is an actor.
Yes.
Why did you choose YouTube? Why did you go digital?
So the way that we went digital was actually during COVID, because like you said, we're both, actors, and during COVID it was lockdown, so there were no actors, who were allowed to shoot. And, for a long time, people have had kind of an interest in our relationship, but we were not trying to, And then just literally one day, we were like, you know what, we're so bored. This is the honest truth. We're so bored, and we are just actually annoying each other. And we were having a conversation, and we said, why don't we record this conversation and just put it on YouTube and see what happens. And we had no idea that in less than a year we would have 100,000 subscribers. And at the time we weren't thinking about what it is that we actually want. Right now we're a lot more intentional about our content, but during that time it was really just about our lives. To echo what she was saying, it was our story, you know, how we got married, the drama of our traditional, you know, wedding, the bola negotiations. We were really just telling the story of our daily lives and what has happened, and people just love the authenticity of what, you know, in which we told those stories. And that's how we sort of continued.
I love it. I love it. And we're going to cover some of those stories, I hope, in the conversation a little bit. But Yvette, you are a power HIV activist who has understood the influence that digital technology has had, to the extent that you are always making TikTok videos. And we saw a really nice PSA in a different podcast where you were encouraging fellow South Africans to get their COVID vaccine. So why is the cell phone, the PDA, and all the apps, why are they so important to you as an activist?
Ben, I think let's not forget that I had a huge Facebook following, and my Facebook got blocked, okay, because of the content and
because of your bad behavior.
No, my radicalism. But I used Facebook at the time when I was diagnosed to tell my story, and people needed to hear authentic stories from people living with HIV, real challenges. And I used that. I used Twitter. I had over, not like Steph, but yeah, I had over 10,000 followers on Twitter, which is big.
Yeah.
Because of the stuff that I did, and it's important. It's important for people to be able to connect, and we can't deny that digital is the way everybody is going.
Yeah.
And I really, really did a lot of my work there, and it's important for us to change. I'm now on TikTok, and I want to be a TikTok sensation by the end of the year and watch that. I make TikTok videos all the time about everything, including making fun of some of the challenges I go through as a leader in Africa.
Which sort of gets us to, I guess, the meat of it, actually, which is if you are programming for health, you are moving to an approach that is about a person, a young woman's whole life, her whole experience. And that is so different from the public health world I grew up in, which was about, now we jolly well tell these young ladies, this is what they do, just cross your legs and say no. And how is it that you have been able to incorporate health messages into these broader storytelling moments, and what resonates and doesn't resonate?
That's a good question. I mean, I think let's look at it the other way around. The messaging needs to come from the person. I think where we're going wrong is assuming that the person sitting in front of you receiving the service doesn't know what they want. They don't know what they need. And I think that is a very old way of thinking about healthcare. People now are coming to the doctor and saying, look, I've Googled it. I know exactly what this is. Yeah. This is what I want. This is what I need. And you're going to help me. And I think we really need to celebrate that, you know, because for the longest time we kept on saying, oh, you know, you have to take your medicine out by like this time, you have to read the instructions, and we were very much based on that. But now people are more informed. So I think it's the other way around. I think we now are getting to a space where differentiated service delivery, different way of thinking, you know, different options need to be put at the table and allow somebody to say, this is what matters to me. And yes, I can then adhere, or I can, you know, even encourage other people, my peers, because I'm sold to it. And that's what's important, I think.
Yeah. I think, you know, if I look at the space that I'm in, content creation, digital space, and so forth, even sometimes the content that we create is informed by our subscribers.
Yes.
I mean, it's not all the time, and yes, we've got sort of a content calendar, but we take a lot of our lead from what it is that our subscribers want to talk about, you know, and we have found that is hugely beneficial because we're listening, you know, to what it is that they're interested in. And I think that as society, we have to get to a point where we are progressive, even in health, and progressive in the sense that we're not dictating that this, that, and that has to be done like this. Because with this, you know, current generation, you can't be doing that. They flat out just gonna completely switch it off, you know. And as much as I know this is not an MTV Staying Alive Foundation podcast session, but that's what I love about our organization, is that we listen to what young people's stories are, and then we create our content according to their lives, you know. And that is why we are as successful as we are, because we're able to take those stories and create content and create series, and then it resonates with them, as opposed to saying, well, this is the picture of a family struggling with this and that based on our research, right? So in that way, we become thought leaders in the content that we create.
Yeah.
Definitely, and mostly just by, for me, it's looking at my comments and looking at what people are asking, and also saying some of the things that people think but they are not able to say. I think that is what makes my content relevant to what I do. And also in our work, it's a lot of challenges, it's a lot of power, it's a lot of hearing from a certain group of people. Now that they hear, I call myself Antipause, now that they hear from a black woman, that they hear from a relatable character, although I'm not a character, but they literally ask those questions, and I go back and I answer them. And it's just the power of having the space, but also relatability.
And it gives courage to hear people then say, if she can say it, I can say it too. Oh, wait a minute, that's my story. And I think the more and more we actually become more outspoken, the more and more stories we're going to collect.
Now, did you say outspoken or spoken?
The more outspoken.
Now, why outspoken?
Because they said, okay, there's a term that's used a lot, so the silent pandemic, and I think it's a very important term, because I think for a lot of people, being intimidated not to speak out loud their fears and concerns has been the silent pandemic. And because it could be because of lack of space, it could be because of social norms, it could be because of self-perceived stigma or lack of whatever it is. There are many things for that. So the outspokenness is actually, for me, gratifying, because now I'm like, wow, what you have to say is actually powerful. And finally you can actually say it, and you feel comfortable saying it.
I agree with that. I mean, there's a lot of topics we discuss on the channel, you know, that once we actually broke the silence, you know, speaking into those conversations. I remember we had a conversation, you know, about miscarriage, because I had a miscarriage, and it was so wild to me in my mind that there were so many young women who identified with this, but had never in their mind felt like they could put something like that on certain social media platforms, especially when you come from, if people perceive you as like either a celebrity or an influencer, or your lifestyle is a certain type of way. I don't know, somehow there are certain things that you're excluded, or they don't imagine that you can go through certain struggles and difficulties. It doesn't matter what it is. Mental health, we've spoken about mental health, we've spoken about depression, we've spoken about so many things that we face as, you know, this young married couple. We speak about these things, and so it gives so many other young people the courage to go, well, you know, I also, and then you start going through the comments and you start saying, this is my story, this is what happened to me, this is what. So I definitely resonate with that. It allows and creates the space for dialogue and for conversation to happen, you know.
How do you protect your own space, your own privacy? Because for a certain amount of time, each episode, you bring people into your life. But how do you hold on to what's yours that isn't for public consumption?
So what was very important is my husband and I had a conversation ahead of starting our channel as to like, how much of our lives will we reveal, and where do we draw the line? And so it was very important that we honored that conversation. So we literally said, here and no further. No matter how badly people want to see or hear about that part of our lives, that's not up for sharing. A simple example is I have a 15-month-old daughter. People have been asking since before she was born, what does she look like? Please, can you just put a picture on social media? We just want to see what we just and we're like, but she should be able to have a say somewhat if she even wants a camera in her face. And that's just something we feel strongly about. And we've had campaigns wanting to do paid partnerships and all kinds of stuff, but obviously with her. And we've had to turn down, which is not the easiest thing to do when you're freelancing.
No.
To be like, no, I don't want that money, but we have had to turn things down because we are rooted in that which we are, felt convicted on, and that's what we believe in. So how you do that is by making sure that you don't move the mark every time circumstances change. So have your this is, I don't want to share this part of my life, and stick to it no matter what happens. Don't be flaky on it. Don't allow some kind of great check to come in, or conversation about some rates. Be like, wow, did we really say we're not going to talk about that, or was it and that's how you make sure that you protect certain parts of your life. Even where we record, we choose certain places in our home that we would record in, and then there's just certain places that is just we're not gonna shoot them. It changes. If some people, they don't mind having their entire lives, and that's fine if you're comfortable with that. But we aren't. So
you have been very open, Yvette, since your HIV diagnosis in the early 2000s, and sharing your story as it has developed, as you have developed as a leader. How have you maintained a sense of self and kept the things that are important to you private?
I think for me it's just staying authentic. Is that I love the fact that people think my craziness, the way I act is not real. That is the authenticity that I project. I also like you, Steph. I kept my children out of it until my daughter could say stuff for herself. Only recently was a picture shown of my daughter at 2.5 and her at some 24 together. And I don't show pictures of my son. My husband just doesn't want to be on social media. Only those people close to me see his pictures. But all of that is just like you say, what you want to share. And for me, it has always been about me. And I know my activism is about me, and my family is apart from that, and just the authenticity. So I've been able to keep my kids away. People close to me know my kids, but like my son, people still ask me, why don't you ever show your son? No, why should I show my son? The people who needs to know him knows him, but you need to know enough that he exists. So that's about it. And my husband is very private. He keeps me in check also sometimes, but it's really very healthy. It's something that we discuss, and we decided that this is about me. I also want to be free to live my life the way I need to live it.
Do you think really resonate from a health perspective through the use of the digital and social media that you use?
So what health, Matt? What health? So, okay, I will say this very selfishly, also because I'm coming from a country that doesn't have access to this, but abortion services are really critical for young people. SRHR services are very critical for young people. We are having so many deaths just because of unsafe abortion practices. We're having so many deaths because young girls are not getting the SRHR services that they require.
Just explain what SRHR.
Oh, sexual reproductive health services. So, for example, access to condoms, believe it or not, is a problem for young people. Going into a health facility and saying, I need condoms, you get stigmatized by the healthcare providers. So that's problem number one. So a prevention mechanism is not even available to young people. Access to pills, contraceptive pills. And it's not only just contraceptive pills, but different models of contraceptives as a whole. In many of the countries, and people have this debate all the time. They're like, oh no, but it's on the shelf. No, it's not on the shelf. One, I don't know what's on the shelf because I'm not informed as a young person what my choices are. And then two, when I do want to go access them, I'm being either stigmatized or I'm told that they're not available on the shelf. So before we look at anything else, I think if we look at the data, and sorry, I'm going to the data, the biggest risk we have is disempowering young people to be able to access sexual reproductive health services in an informed way is a problem. There are too many young deaths, there are too many unwanted pregnancies. We're putting young people's lives at risk, especially young women, with high issues of gender-based violence and incest that are happening in many countries. A lot of young women have no choice but to be giving birth to children that are unwanted pregnancies. So there is a lot to be said around that. And as we can see, the Roe versus Wade has now reversed all the gains, and it's now having a ripple effect throughout the world in terms of now people's perception around abortion. And I think that's a very dangerous thing because it's going to put many young more lives at risk going forward. So that's my opinion.
There was one thing that I found very positive in what you describe, and the Global Listening Project, which our podcast is a project of, was partnering with some groups in Lagos to understand attitudes of teenage girls and young women around the things that hold them back. And particularly around sexual and reproductive health. Oh my gosh, we were blown away by the 10 to 13-year-olds. Oh, contraceptives, there's the pill, there's condoms, there's the implant. They didn't mention the ring, but okay. I was really surprised. I think we all were. And then it was interesting that as you got older, the girls were not as familiar. So something's going on.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I think I would probably say mental health is a big one right now, and I would go a step further in saying mental health in the South African context at least, or even I could say in the African context of our men and boys is something that I feel like is hugely being overlooked in a lot of ways. And I know that in South Africa, for example, going back to data, that we have, I think, the world's highest suicide rate amongst men and boys. And for me, we don't speak about these things enough, and there's also so many stigmas and stuff attached to mental health, holistically speaking. But when it comes to boys, there's also all these stereotypes and stuff about how, you know, boys should be strong and how they, you know, can't go to like have problems because you somehow are supposed to be able to be the provider, and you're supposed to be able to have all your ducks in a row, and you're not supposed to have, you know, all this emotion. And so what do you do, you know, with that? And so I think that it then, you know, flows over into a whole host of things. So I would say mental health, you know, generally speaking, is a big thing that we really need to start paying attention to. I think lockdown and COVID really showed us how big of an issue we have, and also services, right? Because we can say that, oh, you know, you can call this number and get free counseling or therapy, but how is that going? Like, you know, are you on a waiting list? That waiting list number, I don't know, call number 100. How is it actually, you know, doing what it's supposed to be doing, and what other services can young people access where they could speak about the host of things that they are feeling and going through, you know, and so I think mental health is a big one.
What about you, Yvette?
I think I want to agree with both of them, and especially for me, it's also around HIV. But I think you remember this, Steph. In South Africa, there was this young person who went from one tweet, Ujiwa King, what's bothering you? And she had over 1 million followers within a week. And it's because of how the state of mental health in our country is, and how people are not listening to each other. I think Dear Dolly and all of those things used to cover for that. And I think we just need to start thinking around how social media, how digital platforms can be used, and not lose all of those, those important points where people could relate, people could tell their stories,
Yeah.
but just for us to think about it.
Yeah.
And also, I would like to link also how being HIV positive also is a big issue for men, and they cannot deal with it. So very few men are able to deal with HIV issues, being just diagnosed with HIV. And we need to really put some emphasis on some of the structural drivers of why our world is so wrong.
Yeah.
Not being able to provide for your family, poverty, all of these things do have a negative impact on how people see their views in life, and just how that can change.
Yeah. And I think, and I want to add to the social media thing though, in as much as we can use social media as a tool, right, to encourage conversations and to have people speak about their stories and that can help them, we also have to make sure that there are safety nets in place, because social media can also be a tool that can actually do the opposite of what we're wanting to do, so, and it can be used and has been used and is being used, as a source rather than a good tool, right? And so then we have to make sure that there are certain things in place, safety nets, there's certain things that we are doing to make sure that young people are also protected on these very same platforms, and I think that is something that's extremely important, because what I noticed being on social media, is that in as much as we get so much love, we really do, people have such boldness behind their phones and the keypad. I'm telling you.
And a pseudo profile.
User 25789101520 million is what their name is. And they have such boldness. And sometimes it's just that one comment that will push someone over the edge, and so that is something that I also just want to say we have to pay close attention to, being in the digital spaces that we're in.
How do we do that, though? I mean, are you thinking, is that government regulation? Is it self-regulation by the platforms? What is it?
I think it's a combination. I think that there should be government intervention, whatever that might look like. I think the platforms and the companies have a responsibility as well to also have certain safety measures that they're able to put in place, so that there are ways in which you can curb that. I know in South Africa, I think I could be wrong, but I was listening to a broadcast that was saying now that you can be arrested for bullying, because now there's so much suicide happening because of cyberbullying. And so I think that those kinds of things, there has to be a way that it's monitored, and there has to be a way that your information when you log on shows, so that so that law enforcement can show up at your house and say, you're this person who's been saying this and this and this is where we have you listed, this is where your location is, you're in trouble, you shouldn't be doing this. However that manifests or looks, I think that it's a combination of government, it's a combination of the platform creators, and then us who are using it. We also have to hold each other accountable as well.
As you're taking on this new role, Wame, and being the champion of young people's storytelling, where do you draw the line, do you think?
I draw the line when it's harmful. I think we need to, as much as we want to tell all stories, we need to make sure that we're not causing more damage and harm. So that's where I draw the line. And I think we need to have accountability measures that protect young people. Just to the point that you're saying about even social media and how it's being used. I mean, I look at my kids, they're dying to get onto social media, and my heart is palpitating by the minute every time they mention the word. But, we have no choice. It's the future. So I've had to now learn to figure out how I can teach my children to work with social media, but in a way that doesn't cripple them. And as a parent, that's really tough, and my daughters have gotten much better at saying, Mommy, this person said this, and I'm like, great, at least they're coming to me now with the information, and I know how I can then respond to that. So I think the more we can build those kind of mechanisms in place for reporting, for shaming, not in in the sense of saying, how dare this person do this? But there's also another side of it that we need to be careful, that we also don't censor the right messages that need to come through. And I worry about that, because sometimes you see on social media, people get banned from pages and they're saying something really genuine. And so where does the ethics then lie in who actually is allowed to be censored and for what? I think those are the human rights principles that we haven't quite gotten to yet. And AI is about to make it take it into a whole nother level. But we have to have these hard conversations, and we need to create the spaces to have these hard conversations around the ethics of the digital space. What that means for
and
us.
Just look at me, poor me, always saying the right thing on social media, and I get banned for nothing. I mean, when I call out patriarchy, I get banned from Facebook. Why? Why is Facebook patriarchal? Yes. I just needed to get
You
that
needed
in.
to say that. I know. Power.
I never get banned for saying funny things or posting. I just get banned for calling out the real things, and that's
Well,
not
there you are.
cute.
That tells you exactly, doesn't it? So you mentioned AI, and I just wondered how, as we're coming to the top of the hour, how you feel about how AI will change your work and your movement, as it were. I mean, Steph, you responded quite vigorously when Wame mentioned the term AI.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know how I feel about AI, because I can see how it can be beneficial, but I can also see how it can be detrimental, especially in the hands of certain individuals. I look at myself and the work that I do as an actor, and there's a whole lot of things happening right now in the AI space, and a lot of sort of right now, even in the US, there's the writers striking, and that has to do with AI. There's a lot of things that in my space as an actor, that AI is not gelling with. So I don't know how I feel. I need a moment to process AI.
I get you, Steph, and in my work and in my passion, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I think the cure for HIV is on this AI space. What if AI can pull all the science together and say, click, that's the cure for HIV. So I'm on a different level. I want AI to do real work, not make terrorists out of people who are not make things bad for people, but come on with the real thing. I want to see AI come up with a cure.
I think that's what we all hope for, the responsible use of any and all technological advances, and it shouldn't replace a lot of people's way of living and income and all that kind of stuff.
I saw a humanless McDonald's, by the way.
Oh yeah,
I'm not okay.
How many jobs at that point in time? I mean, I think at one point they were talking about taking, if I've been on 5, 10, 20 different films and using different facial, gathering all of that together and then just creating a whole entire film with me, but not with me. That's wild. It's just crazy, for me to even, I can't even think, in that way, but then there can be positives, like you're saying, So I guess we'll see.
There is one form of digital and social media that, has huge impact and is absolutely brilliant and powerful, and that is the podcast.
Yes,
of course.
I knew you were going to say that.
I knew it. Of course.
So, final question for you all.
Yes.
Is there a podcast, an episode or a clip that has really stood out to you as a really good example of the power of telling a story to convey a health message appropriately?
This one.
Yeah, I was about to say
A shot in the arm.
A shot in the arm.
A shot in the arm.
We're in agreement.
you
We're
know,
not with that said.
Is that even a debate?
It's-
This is why this is a question.
Come on.
Yeah.
Next question,
Was that
Ben.
really a
No,
question?
that's fine. We can close here. Well, so I had one actually. I did, yes, and it was a British one. It was an episode of a political podcast called The Bunker, and there was one woman who is the head of a political advocacy group called Best for Britain. And she interviewed a woman from Northern Ireland, the British Pregnancy Advisory Service. And of course, Northern Ireland has very, very, very strict abortion restrictions, much less than the Republic of Ireland. And this was an extraordinary podcast because it shed a light on the experience of young women having to leave Northern Ireland and coming to the UK. And that actually was a big inspiration for continuing to do A Shot in the Arm, because I think we can tell stories in different ways.
Yeah.
So but I appreciate the love. Thank you very much.
We're still not changing our minds. It is
Yeah,
the
exactly.
short film.
Well, Wame, Yvette, Steph, thank you very much for joining us. And I know you've all got really busy weeks. We're here recording this during the UN General Assembly, but thank you for spending the time with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
You're most
for
welcome.
organizing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thanks for
having
having
us.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben.
Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you to Wame, to Yvette, and to Steph. Thanks to Erica Spera, our director and producer from Newsdoc Media. A special thanks to Chad Parisman, who is our New York producer. Our production coordinator is Waisha Raphael, and our intern is Will Lansdale. We're a project of the Global Listening Project. Have a great week and a safe week, everyone.